What is up, everybody? This is Ryan Ellis, and I'm super excited to announce the official launch of the Marching Arts Society podcast, Episode 1. Today I want to talk through my story and the events that took place that kind of got me to where I am today. So, percussion started for me in the 5th grade. I am from Lebanon, Ohio, which is a suburb north of Cincinnati. For those of you who don't know, this is where I grew up, this is where I currently live. And I began band in the Lebanon School District in the 5th grade. Now, the crazy thing about this time in my life, because of who I am now, is that for 3 years, band wasn't that important to me. I was in band. I had friends that were in band. I guess I did like percussion, but I wasn't in private lessons. I didn't practice. I didn't know my music. I couldn't play my parts. I'm positive that I wasn't the best student. I slacked off a lot. I didn't pay very much attention in class. So for 3 years there, band was, I guess, just a hobby. And that all kind of shifted when I got into the 8th grade. So in the 8th grade, this would have been January of 2009, I guess, the band director came to the band room, and this guy was also the director at the high school program. And he opened up the possibility for the percussionist to join the high school drumline. Now, at this point in my life, I had seen nothing in regards to the marching activity. I hadn't seen a drum corps show. I hadn't seen an indoor percussion ensemble, not even the ones that were at the high school. So I'm not really sure, even to this day, what motivated me to accept this offer, but for some reason I did. So he extends this offer and I join. Now, the reason he was extending this offer, this was January, this was the middle of the season for the drumline, was because, I can't remember if it was because the membership started so low or because they had people back out of the ensemble, but for whatever reason, they felt that if they couldn't get more members, they weren't going to finish their competitive season. So I hop on board, and I'm playing bass drum, bass 2 of 3 bass drummers. So ensemble's really small. The battery was 2 bass drummers, 2 snare drummers, 2 quad drummers, no cymbals, and a front ensemble of approximately 5 people or so. Really small ensemble. The season, although fairly fun, was competitively very unsuccessful. We got maybe 64th place in prelims at WGI. It was one of the perks of, or is one of the perks of being a school in the Dayton area, is that even at that level, we got to participate in WGI at Dayton. So that was pretty cool. But again, we didn't really see a lot of competitive success. I believe our score was probably around a 60, low 60, maybe 61. And so that was the beginning for me. The cool part about this season was the first show of the year, which our circuit is called MIPA, stands for Mid-East Performance Association. Rhythm X actually performs in our circuit. So every show we would go to, Rhythm X would be there. And at the first show of the year, after our performance, we're in A class. We go on earlier in the competition. We go up in the stands, we start watching groups, and Rhythm X comes on. Now, again, I had seen nothing of this ensemble or any ensembles like it at this time. And I was completely blown away. The show they did that year was called Touch. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. But it basically sparked my passion for the marching arts and began my desire to pursue a marching career. So going into my freshman year, the next year, I am on snare drum for the fall. The ensemble's slightly bigger. Now that my class was in high school, I had a pretty big percussion class. The drum line was a little bit bigger, but I felt that even though I was starting to create this love for the activity, I was watching hours of YouTube videos every day of all kinds of drum corps and WGI groups. I was becoming obsessed. I loved what I was watching, but I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what to practice. I didn't know how much to practice. I had no idea what I was doing. And my freshman year of high school was similar to my 8th grade in that I spent the whole time not really knowing what I was supposed to be working on, but I had this desire to get good, and I had this love for the activity. My sophomore year of high school, well, let me rewind. The end of my freshman year indoor drumline, our director resigned, so he finished his last season there. And then my sophomore year, fall marching band, we had a new director. He was a great guy, but he kind of left us in or me personally, in a similar situation where I had a lot of things I wanted to do, and I had no idea what I was doing. In October of my sophomore year of high school, so we have maybe 3 weeks left in marching band, our percussion director is let go, fired. This, at the time, seemed like a complete catastrophe, ended up being a blessing in disguise. So he's let go. My band director sends out kind of a call for help to a lot of the band directors in the area, saying, hey, we need a director. We need somebody to teach the kids. And the guy who ended up getting that job, his name is Jared Thomas. Now, Jared Thomas, if you don't know him, he's from North Carolina. He marched Bluecoats, Carolina Crown, Rhythm X. He taught the Bluecoats Drum and Bugle Corps as well as Crossman. And my sophomore year of high school, he became the percussion director at Lebanon. Now, for me, this was huge because I had seen Rhythm X. I had already started developing my passion for the activity. And now I had someone who, to me, was a complete celebrity standing in front of me, someone who had participated in these ensembles. And I felt like I finally had the information I needed to allow the passion that I had already developed to kind of come into fruition. So I remember Jared Thomas shows up the first day. A lot of us are kind of geeking out over him being there. And he asked us to play 8 and 25, an exercise that none of us had ever played. It's 2 bars of triplet check and then 6 bars of triplet roll. And it was awful. The drumline folds all over it. People are breaking. It sounds like garbage. And he cuts and he says, how much do you guys chop out? And that was the first time that we had ever heard that word. I had never heard the term chop out, which now to me is silly because its frequency of use in this activity is really high. And he kind of set in motion for me a snowball effect that led to a lot of success in the marching activity. So I started taking private lessons from him. He's the director at the school. I'm learning more than I could have ever imagined. And because of the amount of respect that I have for this individual, I'm doing everything that he's saying. So for the next 2 years, the drumline picks up exponentially. The ensemble is tripling in size. We go from, again, my 8th grade year, 2009, WGI getting close to the bottom of Scholastic A, to 2012, my junior year, winning Scholastic A. So it didn't take long for his talents and ability to teach to kind of have an overarching effect on the entirety of the ensemble. And while this was happening, I had expressed to Jared my desire to march drum corps. And he thought that was great. We started taking more and more private lessons. I'm sure that at the peak of this, we were probably almost to 2 hours a week of private lessons. I was drumming an insane amount, hours and hours and hours every day. I was giving up a lot of other things so I could practice as much as I needed to. And we had settled upon the Madison Scouts. That was going to be the drum corps I was going to audition for. He had asked me about a list of drum lines that I liked, and we had talked through some. And that year at the Madison Scouts, they had a staff change. Lee Bettis went there, who had been at Carolina Crown for a while, James Sparling, a couple other people, and Jared had some connections there. So some people that he had marched with, some people he knew from the activity, and he told them about me. So I was able to get lessons not only from Jared, but also with a guy named Jeff Brooks, who was the snare tech at Madison, which was awesome, because then I was getting feedback from the people who were going to decide, my fate of making the ensemble. So I was in a really good spot. So I go and audition for the Madison Scouts. I think I was 16 years old, and I make it past the first camp. I make it past the second camp. Now it's January, and they're going to set the line. They ended up taking 8 snares, and I think there's probably around 12 at the camp. That might not be exactly right, but it's somewhere around there. About 12 snare drummers, and they're gonna take it down to 8. So obviously I had a chance of making it. They had liked me enough to let me stay on board for this far. The camp was in Texas, so my mother and I flew down there, and I auditioned, and ended up just folding all over myself. So high pressure situations like drum corps auditions get, I'm put under stress. I'm making mistakes that I usually don't make because I'm not ready to handle this, and I get cut. I don't make it. So this was, fairly late in what the drum corps audition season is. It's January, probably the third week in January at this point, and I'm freaking out because I want to march right now, and I don't think I'll be able to. So as soon as I get cut, I talk to Jared. I walk him through what happened, whatever, and then I'm like, hey man, I still want to march. So I had already expressed an interest in wanting to march Spirit of Atlanta, and there were two snare techs there, Chris Gary and Kevin Thorburn, who had both recently aged out of Rhythm X, and Jared Thomas knew both of them, so I had another in there. So Jared and myself emailed them. We asked them if it's still possible for me to audition because this is the middle of their audition season, and they approve. So I send in videos playing all the exercises in their packet, and they give me an invite to the camp, the February camp, which is where they were going to set the line. So now I'm in Atlanta. I'm auditioning for Spirit of Atlanta, and it's a similar situation. They're going to take 8, and I think there were 12. At the end of that camp, they had contracted 6. So there were about 4 or 5 people or so, I can't remember the exact number, that were still able to get a spot, but we had to send in videos. So this whole thing is prolonged. My stress level's super high because I just want to know at this point if I'm going to be able to march or not. I send in my videos. A few weeks later, I get the news that I'm in, that I'm marching. So 2012, first summer I have a drum corps at Spirit of Atlanta, changed my life forever. The information I got was amazing. The experience, if you've never marched drum corps before, the first time you do it is completely life-altering. So it was just a great experience, and it started this crazy amount of momentum for me in my marching career. So I finish Spirit of Atlanta. I go back. I'm still in high school. I got to finish up my senior year of high school. So I'm doing senior year marching band. And Jared Thomas, I'm in lessons with him again. He's like, hey, dude, you should audition for Rhythm X. And this was almost laughable to me at this point because, the status that I held this ensemble to, for him to even think that I was capable of being in the same ballpark as some of those people was, I don't know, it just seemed completely unreasonable. But anyways, he convinces me to do it. So I go audition for Rhythm X, and by some miracle, ended up making it. So I'm a senior in high school now. Rhythm X offers me a contract. And WGI has a rule, at least they did at the time, I'm sure that it's still a thing, that if you're in high school and you want to march an independent ensemble and your high school has a drum line, that the director has to sign off on it. So Jared was like, hey, I'll sign this off. You made it. You deserve to march Rhythm X. And then I was like, well, I still want to do Lebanon. Can I do both? So we work out a way for me to be in both ensembles in my senior year of high school. I was in my high school ensemble at Lebanon. We had just won A class, so now we're in open class. We ended up making open class finals, and I'm marching Rhythm X at the same time. And we end up, that was 2013, Man in the Arena. It was an amazing show, an amazing season. We won. We broke a record at the time, and it was just, the whole thing was crazy. During this process, I had decided that I wanted to go audition for Bluecoats, and ended up making that as well. So now I have Bluecoats to look forward to. I finished this season at Rhythm X and Lebanon. It was an amazing winter season. And then I go and march Bluecoats. And I did that for 2 years, 13 and 14. And that was great. I learned from some great people, Tom Gasparini, Joe Woody, Roger Carter, Mike Jackson, all these insane names. And I got a ton of great feedback from them. And at that point in time, my marching career had kind of come to this realization that education was almost cliquey in a way, in the sense that there were all these drum lines. If you take a look at Santa Clara Vanguard, the Blue Devils, Bluecoats, Cadets, Cavaliers, whoever you want, Crown, all these amazing groups, they're not taught the same way. The technique that the staff abides by is not the same. The way that the organization is run is not the same. It's different. And for me, I had gotten into drum corps and indoor drumline at such a young age. I felt like I don't want to age out and feel like there's something that I missed out on educationally. So I, in 2013, had marched with this guy named Adam Wilson. He's from California, marched RCC. And he, after that season of Bluecoats, went to Blue Devils and marched Blue Devils. So now I had this friend at Blue Devils, the first person I knew that was in the Blue Devils. That wasn't a drum corps that was really on my radar growing up. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't really know what they were all about. But anyway, so in the 2014 season when I was marching Bluecoats, I'd hang out with Adam, and he would kind of fill me in on what was going on. And it sounded awesome. He would tell me about the way they were learning and things like that. And I was blown away by what he said their daily interactions with each other were like, and their schedules, and the way that the staff taught. And this was at the same time where I was having this realization, like, I want to feel like because I'll have so many years, I feel like I want to age out and know that I learned as much as I could from as many people as possible. So after the 2014 season, this was a really difficult decision because I, growing up, had always wanted to be a Blue Coat. That was always where I wanted to be. I was in an amazing show. In 2014, we ended up getting second place, which was the highest the Corps had ever done at the time. It was just a ridiculous season. And then I made the decision that I wanted to go audition for Blue Devils and just see what it was like. And that ended up being the hardest audition I had ever been through in my entire life. Not only because I was at a brand new place and wasn't exactly sure what the culture was going to be like, what I was going to be asked to do, but also because the talent that I was auditioning against was unlike anything I had ever seen before. So I make it to the last camp. There were 5 vets, and they were going to take 9, so there's really 4 spots. And there was like 7 of us, of these guys with just ridiculous amounts of experience. People who had marched Bluecoats, people who had marched Mystique, Cavaliers, all these crazy places. And I had to compete against them in some of the most high-pressure situations I had ever been put in. And again, somehow I had a successful audition. I had been practicing a lot, and it worked out. And I made it. I made the Blue Devils. And that's where I spent the last 3 summers until now, where I've aged out. And the experiences I had there were insane. So alongside marching Blue Devils, I had continued to march for the Mex. So I'm currently, it's 2018, I'm aged out of drum corps, but I'm currently in my last season for the Mex, and this is my 6th year there. So alongside all this drum corps was a vast amount of indoor drumline, and I had started teaching as well at a couple different schools, Westerville North High School, Coleraine High School, Loveland High School, and then Lebanon High School. I've been teaching at the whole time since I graduated. As soon as I graduated, Jared offered me a job. And so I'd been teaching there, and then in February of 2017, Jared told me that he's going to move to Australia, which was crazy. He's going to move all the way around the world, and he told me that he wanted to give me the program, that he wanted me to be the director. And so this was insane because, one, this guy that had been mentoring me for the last, 7 years of my life was leaving. But alongside that, I was now given the opportunity to be the director at a world-class ensemble. And not just any ensemble, but the ensemble that I graduated from and had an obvious, high emotional attachment to. So that whole thing was kind of crazy, which leads us to now in this season at Rhythm X, I'm not only in the ensemble Rhythm X, but also the director of Lebanon High School. So the crazy thing is that in April, this all comes to an end. This is my last year of eligibility. So that's it. After this, 6 years of drum corps, 6 years of Rhythm X, as well as everything in high school, and it's all over in this capacity. So that's my story. I wanted to share for anyone who listens to this or anything that the Marching Arts Society puts out. I'm not sure exactly how much my audience knows about me or my background. I think it's important to establish that relationship. If not for curiosity, at least for credibility in some area. So I hope this has been intriguing. Again, this is the first episode of what will hopefully be many. If you have any comments about the episode, anything you want to talk about with me about what we just talked about, or anything at all, you can feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, or you can email me at ryanellis@marchingartssociety.com. And I will certainly try to get back to you and have some meaningful conversations. Thank you guys for listening.